Our mission with Project Baseline is to encourage our dive teams around the world to get out and document the environments that they are diving in on a regular basis so that we can establish a baseline of underwater environmental conditions and then hopefully evaluate how those conditions are changing through time. Our first mission on Baseline Explorer was to join Dr. Brian LaPointe from the Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute to help him in his work to document the source of algae growing on the reefs on the Florida platform, the southern Florida platform.
I first came to the Keys actually when I was in high school with a couple of buddies. You know, it was just a real paradise back then. The water was really, really clear. The reefs were totally alive. That's one of the reasons I went into a career in marine science. I was really inspired by those early experiences.
So we established several locations along that path, and we took the Baseline Explorer with volunteer divers that we solicited from the GUE community, and under Brian's direction we collected algae samples, video transects, and photographs. That in essence was our mission. Brian's interest there is he uses a technique called isotopic analysis to basically evaluate the algae, and through the isotopic analysis he can determine the source of that algae, whether it's from deep upwelling of naturally occurring ocean nutrients or whether it's from wastewater or fertilizers that are coming off of the land.
The symptoms of this problem, as scientists we call this eutrophication. What you see basically over time in this environment is the decline of corals, which are adapted to very low nutrient concentrations, and the overgrowth of the dead corals by algae. We're seeing algae all over the bottom now, building up in thick mats in many places. Most of these algae are native species that, given more nutrients, are just kind of growing out of control. Coral reefs have adapted over millions of years to living and thriving in clear, clean, nutrient-free water. And so when you add nutrients, that changes everything. It tears your heart out to see what's happened really to your backyard. I mean, I built my home and lab here thinking that I would have this resource certainly for my lifetime and hopefully for my son's lifetime, but that was not the case at all.
The trip culminated in visiting the wastewater outfalls that discharge approximately 2 miles offshore from the cities of Miami and Hollywood. There, you just have this opportunity to see, number one, you can see the reef and the impacted state of the reef, and then you can see the outfall just pouring out from the pipes. It's very visible, not very appealing, but you can easily see it and then track it visually as it moves along the reefs.
So Brian, what are we looking at? I mean, I know this is an outfall, but what is that brown water?
This is the Hollywood outfall, and what we're looking at is the discharge of many million gallons a day of partially treated sewage effluent. This is only secondarily treated, which means it still contains very high concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus.
The things that I've read from the managers all indicate that this is treated to drinking water standard. That doesn't look like drinking water to me, or am I missing something?
It's definitely not up to drinking water standards. It has a long way to go before it gets there.
Essentially, if we could reduce the amount of nitrogen coming into the environment through better wastewater treatment, through reductions in nutrients or fertilizers in agriculture, then we might have a chance at bringing back the reefs and the springs. Is that what I'm hearing?
Roger that. That is doable, but to get there from where we're at now, we've got to get through the denial that still exists among some politicians and resource managers. Almost everyone I know realizes that, yet the very people that are paid to protect this resource say there's no problem.
Thank you for all the work you're doing here, and thanks for contributing here to what we're trying to do with Project Baseline.
It became clear that not one person understood that those outfalls still existed. In Florida, Floridians that pay reasonable attention to politics and to the environmental issues, but also with people that work for the Department of Environmental Protection. What we saw throughout the stations, including the Florida Keys Marine Sanctuary, was a distinct lack of living coral. but there is hope. If it has demised in a short period of time, I think there's hope for recovery if we can acknowledge the problem, confront it head on, and find an alternative to the practices that we're currently engaged in that are destroying these reefs with elevated nutrients.